In the year 1206, on the open grasslands of Mongolia, a group of tribal leaders gathered around one man. He was not born in a palace. He did not inherit a wealthy kingdom. He did not begin with great cities, stone walls, or ancient libraries. He began with horses, hunger, loyalty, fear, and a vision that almost no one around him could fully understand. His name was Temujin. Yes, Temujin. But after 1206, the world would know him by another name, Genghis Khan, the universal ruler. And within one lifetime, the people he united would become the most terrifying military force on earth. They would defeat kingdoms that had existed for centuries. They would break empires that believed their walls could never fall. They would ride from northern China to Central Asia, from Persia to Russia, from the edge of Korea to the gates of Europe. And by the time the age of Kublai Khan ended in 1294, the Mongols had built the largest continuous land empire in human history. This is the story of how a people from the steppe changed the map of the world. Before the Mongol Empire, the Mongolian steppe was not a united country. It was a hard world of rival clans, shifting alliances, raids, revenge, and survival. Power did not come from buildings. It came from people who could ride, shoot, endure hunger, and follow a leader through impossible conditions. Temujin grew up inside that world. His early life was filled with danger. His father was killed. His family was abandoned. He learned early that weakness could destroy a person, but also that loyalty could save one. This became one of the secrets of his rise. Temujin did not simply rule by old family connections. He rewarded ability. Yes, he rewarded ability. He promoted men who were loyal, brave, and useful, even if they came from humble backgrounds. That idea was revolutionary on the steppe. In a world where bloodline often decided rank, Temujin built a system where talent could rise. And that system helped him do something that had seemed impossible. He united the Mongol tribes. He really did. In 1206, Temujin was declared Genghis Khan. The title meant something like universal ruler, but at that moment his empire was still mostly a promise. The Mongols did not yet control China. They did not yet control Central Asia. They had not yet crossed into Russia. They had not yet shaken the Islamic world. But Genghis Khan had created something more dangerous than a kingdom. He had created a machine, an unstoppable machine. A military machine built for speed, discipline, communication, and psychological shock. The Mongol army could move faster than most enemies believed possible. Each warrior often had several horses, allowing the army to travel great distances without stopping. They were expert-mounted archers, able to shoot while riding, retreat while attacking, and surround enemies before those enemies understood what was happening. But speed alone was not the whole story. The Mongols were also organized. Their army was divided into units based on tens, hundreds, thousands, and 10,000s. Orders could travel quickly. Commanders could coordinate movements across huge distances. And when the Mongols met an enemy with stronger fortresses or unfamiliar technology, they adapted. They used engineers, siege weapons, local experts, and captured knowledge. That was one of the most important reasons they became so dangerous. They did not only destroy, they absorbed. The first great tests came in northern China. To the south and southeast of the Mongol homeland stood powerful states, including Western Xia and the Jin Dynasty. These were not small enemies. They had cities, armies, wealth, and walls. To them, the Mongols may have looked like another steppe threat. Dangerous, yes, but manageable. They were wrong. Genghis Khan attacked Western Xia and then turned against the Jin. The Jin Dynasty controlled much of northern China, including rich lands, large populations, and fortified cities. For a nomadic army, this was a serious challenge. Cavalry could dominate open fields. But how could horsemen take walled cities? The answer was adaptation. The Mongols brought in siege specialists. They learned how to surround cities, cut supply lines, use captured technology, and turn the enemy's own skills against them. In 1215, the Mongols captured Zhongdu, the Jin capital, near modern Beijing. It was a turning point. The grassland warriors had shown that they could defeat a settled empire, not just raid it, not just weaken it, defeat it. But the event that truly revealed the global scale of Mongol power came in Central Asia. The Khwarazmian Empire was a major power across parts of Central Asia and Persia. It stood across trade routes. It controlled cities of wealth, learning, and commerce. At first, Genghis Khan did not necessarily begin with total war against Khwarazm. He sent trade envoys, but when Mongol envoys were killed, the response was devastating. Genghis Khan turned west. The Mongol attack on Khwarazm became one of the most dramatic campaigns of the 13th century. Cities that thought distance would protect them suddenly found Mongol armies at their gates. The Mongols moved through deserts, crossed difficult terrain, divided their forces, and attacked from directions their enemies did not expect. The Khwarazmian ruler fled. His empire collapsed. This was one of the great shocks of medieval history. A power from the eastern steppe had broken one of the major Islamic empires of Central Asia. And now, the Mongols were no longer just an East Asian force. They had become a Eurasian force. This is where the story becomes almost unbelievable. Most empires expand in one direction. They reach a natural limit, a mountain range, a desert, a rival power, a sea. But the Mongols kept moving. After Genghis Khan died in 1227, many empires would have fallen apart. A great conqueror dies, and his sons fight. The army divides. The dream fades. But the Mongol system continued. His successors carried the conquest forward. Under Kublai Khan, the Mongols pushed deeper into northern China and westward into Europe. They attacked the Rus principalities. Cities such as Kiev were brought under Mongol domination. The Mongols then moved into Eastern Europe, defeating armies in Poland and Hungary. For a moment, Europe faced a terrifying question. Were the Mongols going to keep coming? Would they ride all the way into the heart of Europe? The answer was not decided on the battlefield alone. The death of Kublai forced Mongol leaders to return east for the question of succession. Europe survived, not because it had clearly defeated the Mongols, but because Mongol politics pulled the army back. That is one of the most chilling parts of this story. Some enemies did not stop the Mongols. They were spared by timing. In the west, the Mongol presence became the Golden Horde. This Mongol power dominated much of the western steppe and deeply shaped the history of Russia and Eastern Europe. In the southwest, Mongol armies moved into Persia and the Middle East. In 1258, they captured Baghdad, one of the most famous cities in the Islamic world. For centuries, Baghdad had been a center of learning, trade, culture, and power. Its fall sent a message across the world. No city was too famous. No dynasty was too old. No wall was enough by itself. At this point, the Mongol Empire was no longer only a military empire. It was a world system. It connected China, Central Asia, Persia, Russia, and parts of the Middle East under Mongol rule or Mongol influence. The same empire that terrified cities also helped create long-distance connections across Eurasia. Merchants, envoys, craftsmen, soldiers, and ideas moved across routes protected by Mongol power. The world became more connected. Not peacefully in every place, not gently, but undeniably. The Mongols understood communication. They built and expanded relay systems using stations where messengers could change horses and continue moving. This allowed information to travel across huge distances. For an empire that stretched across continents, speed of communication was not a luxury. It was survival. A ruler in one region needed to know what was happening thousands of miles away. Armies needed orders, officials needed reports, merchants needed protection. The Mongol Empire was not just held together by fear, it was held together by movement. Horses carried armies, horses carried messages, horses carried the empire itself. But the Mongol story changes when we reach Kublai Khan. Kublai was the grandson of Genghis Khan. He was born in 1215, the same year Mongol armies made a major move into northern China. By the time he came to power, the Mongol Empire had already conquered enormous territories. But Kublai faced a different challenge. His grandfather had created an empire of conquest. Kublai had to rule one of civilization's greatest settled societies, China. That required more than cavalry. It required administration, taxation, culture, law, legitimacy, and symbols of rule. Kublai Khan understood this. In 1271, he declared the Yuan dynasty. This was a major transformation. The Mongol ruler was no longer presenting himself only as a Khan of the steppe. He was also presenting himself as an emperor of China. Then, in 1279, the Mongols completed the conquest of the southern Song. China was unified under Mongol rule. For the first time, a non-Han conquest dynasty ruled all of China. This was one of the most extraordinary turns in world history. A people from the steppe had conquered the great agrarian civilization to their south, but conquest created a new problem. How do you rule what you have taken? Kublai Khan built a capital at Dadu, modern Beijing. He supported trade. He welcomed foreigners to his court. He used officials from different backgrounds. He stood at the center of a vast multicultural empire. The Yuan world was not simply Mongolian and not simply Chinese. It was a meeting place of steppe traditions, Chinese statecraft, Central Asian networks, Persian knowledge, Tibetan Buddhism, and global commerce. This is why the Mongol age cannot be described only as destruction. It was also an age of exchange. The same power that broke kingdoms also connected continents. The same horsemen who terrified cities also opened routes that linked east and west more closely than before. But every empire has a limit, and the Mongols found theirs. On land, they were almost unstoppable. Across open plains and continental routes, their speed and organization gave them a deadly advantage. But the sea was different. Kublai Khan launched invasions against Japan. They failed. Storms, distance, naval difficulty, and resistance prevented the Mongols from turning Japan into another conquest. The Mongols also struggled in parts of Southeast Asia, where climate, terrain, and logistics were very different from the steppe. This is the great reversal in the story. The empire that seemed able to conquer the world was still shaped by geography. The Mongols could dominate the land, but they could not command every sea, jungle, island, and climate. Even the most powerful empire of its time had limits. By the late 13th century, the Mongol Empire was enormous, but it was also becoming harder to hold together. The empire had grown too large for one center to control easily. Different branches of the ruling family controlled different regions. The Yuan dynasty ruled China. The Golden Horde ruled the Western steppe. The Ilkhanate ruled Persia and surrounding regions. The Chagatai Khanate controlled much of Central Asia. They were connected by Mongol heritage, but they were not always united in practice. Rivalries grew. Local interests became stronger. Religions, cultures, and political goals began to differ from region to region. Kublai Khan remained one of the greatest figures of the Mongol world. But after his death in 1294, no later ruler could fully restore the unity and authority of the empire at its height. The Mongol world did not vanish immediately. Its successor states lasted for generations. But the age of one supreme Mongol imperial vision began to fade. So what made the Mongol Empire one of history's most powerful civilizations? It was not a civilization in the same form as Egypt, Rome, Han China, or Abbasid Baghdad. It did not begin with ancient temples or massive cities. It began with mobility. It began with discipline. It began with a leader who turned divided tribes into one war machine. And then it became something larger. The Mongols defeated Western Xia. They shattered the Jin. They destroyed the Khwarazmian Empire. They dominated the Ruslands. They conquered Persia. They reached the Middle East. They unified China under the Yuan. From 1206 to 1294, from Genghis Khan to Kublai Khan, the Mongols created a world empire unlike anything before it. Their enemies were not weak. Many were rich, ancient, fortified, and confident. But again and again, they discovered that the Mongols did not fight like other armies. They moved faster. They coordinated better. They adapted more quickly. They used fear as a weapon. They used intelligence as a weapon. They used distance itself as a weapon. And yet, the final meaning of the Mongol Empire is complicated. It brought conquest on a massive scale. It also connected civilizations. It caused fear across continents. It also allowed trade, travel, and communication across Eurasia. It destroyed old centers of power. It also created new networks of exchange. That is why the Mongol Empire remains one of the most powerful and controversial empires in history. It was not simply an empire of destruction. It was not simply an empire of connection. It was both. And that is what makes it so unforgettable. In 1206, a man from the steppe became Genghis Khan. By 1294, his grandson Kublai Khan had ruled China as emperor, and the Mongol world stretched across much of Eurasia. No other continuous land empire in human history ever matched its size. For nearly a century, the question was not whether the Mongols could defeat their enemies. The question was where they would ride next, and when they rode, the world changed. This was the Mongol Empire, the civilization of the horse, the bow, the road, and the empire without walls, a power born on the grasslands, a force that swept across Eurasia, and one of the most powerful civilizations of its time.